Well, I've always been a collector. I mean, it's a joke. I've had, from the time I was 5 years old, I collected postcards. They used to be a penny each in New England, where I went buying at 5. I still have some of those postcards. I collected these things because it's how I think. I kind of play with the old pictures, the old postcards, the old books, and I touch them and ideas come to me. It's how I create. It's my, you know how everybody has a thing they do to kind of escape from their brain, almost like playing solitaire on the airplane. I use these objects, always have. And in the current state of things, putting 16 millimeter and 35 millimeter into digital is expensive. So I was waiting for those times, and every once in a while, I would take one of my old 16 millimeter things or 35 millimeter things and send them down to Los Angeles and pay the $1,000 or $2,000 or more to get it digitized. A lot of my things were not digitized. My interviews with Ronald Reagan before he was president, my filming of Joan Baez and Bob Dylan when they were together, my interviews with this cowboy in Montana who was a world-class poet, Spike, my interviews with all the Life magazine photographers, the great Life magazine photographers, I had that all on 16 millimeter, 35 millimeter, and audio tape, thousands of them. They were all stored at my house on the top of a mountain in Santa Cruz, where I did my day work to make a living and didn't pay much attention except when I had a moment or two and I could go up and play with these things. I also had thousands of photographs, thousands of LP records, magazines that I had collected. All of it I had ideas for that I was going to do in the future. And I went off to work on February 15th, 2008, over the hill on Route 17. And when I got to the very top, on my way to Google, where I was a consultant in video, my wife calls, says, the house is burning down, turn around. I turned around, I drove down 17, across to where I lived at 120 miles an hour, not giving a shit if I was going to get stopped. And as I came into Scotts Valley, I could see smoke rising from the top of the mountain. That was my house. I had no other thought but the security of my wife and my children. The things didn't mean anything. Drove back up the driveway. There's fire trucks all around, hoses, people running. And I look over and my house is burning, all these things. And as I'm arriving, the second floor with all the film, thousands of films, crashes through to the first floor of the garage. My wife is standing outside, my 2 children in the car, completely safe. And I run up to her and scream, it's going to be all right, it's going to be all right. Screaming. She says it's quite a memorable moment. And in my mind, I calculate the present and the future. The past has no meaning, because it happened. The present is what I'm in. I got to figure something out. The future is where I'm going. What can I do with this? I went up the next morning, called people I knew around town and some others who came to help, about 30 people. And we started to dig through the rubble while the smoke was still there, and we found stuff. Pictures that were burned around the edges. Books that was burned around the edges. And we laid it all out. It went all around the house, thousands of things. And I began to look through these things. Rain was coming in 2 days. I had to pick what I'd still want to see. What spoke for me? Some people I know have never gotten over those tragedies. They live in those tragedies of the lost moments. And I think it's much healthier to look at every tragedy. Fire is a tragedy, particularly when you collect this stuff, with your collector mentality, and 16 millimeter can't be replaced. And I turned it into something yet unfinished. This place makes me happy. I don't think I've ever let a video person, camera person into this room. This room is the result of my fire, and there's a lifetime of my collections, the ideas that I had for the future and the past, photographs of my family, my father's paintings, sculptural things that matter to me. This is a rich place, and every time I go in here, I feel good. I instantly feel like this is home to me, boy. I mean, this is like a box of photographs that I am assembling because I love how people look in a still, the mood of a time. Now, not all these are great pictures, although I'm damn good at finding the ones I want. I know exactly why I want. I'm very interested, for example, in scared people, like the girl on the left. So I'm collecting it. It's one of my categories that I'm collecting. I'm interested particularly in women photographing other women. That is a major fascination. I came to the conclusion by looking at all these pictures and by looking at shadows of people that when women photographed each other without men, they behave differently. They're more sexual, oddly enough. They're less posed. They're having more fun. So I got a whole thing going with women photographing women. I'm very interested. I've been a collector all my life of photo albums. This particular album is glorious. It's some girl in high school. Usually high school is a time when people are very revealing of the mood. I don't have video, but I can, you know, with modern technology, you can make film still into motion. I do that. Here's my Nagra. I have two. My Nagra 4.2, the first stereo Nagra, 40 years old, was a great work of art. It is beautifully made, every little switch. This was the sound recorder that recorded audio tapes that were of the most ridiculous high quality, and that was 26 pounds, so you could carry it. It's still a great recorder. They sell for more than $1,000 on eBay. Hey, here's something interesting. I did this when I was 10 years old. Pardon me for falling on my own boxes here. Now, let me just pull out one of these things. Oh, I'll pull out this one. I told you I was a collector of postcards in New England, and these albums I made as a boy. And this particular one, which really I loved the Germans were the great printers of the time, and they figured out how to print a image on an embossing with full 26 colors, including gold ink, gold paint. And they did it just perfectly. I mean, these things are embossed. The paint is perfect. So I used to buy them all over New England, and I collected, and I still love, and it didn't get burned in the fire. And why it didn't get burned in the fire is because my wife, disgusted by all this stuff, saying, you know, in New England, where you come from, David, this stuff stayed in the barn, not the house, asked me to remove it. So I got a metal container, which I had in front of my house. And because of that, everything that's here was in that metal container and didn't burn. So I lost my film, that was in the house. But all these wonderful old books that I've had, I'm very interested in patriotism, you know, like Uncle Sam. This, I bought two of them when they were first made in 1976 because I thought, man, that's America. I don't mean that that's the essence of America, but I believe in these things. I'm very interested in hand painting. This is a hand-painted photograph. I was an early activist in the civil rights movement. I picketed when I was 16 the Woolworths near my house and got arrested, in fact. So I'm always interested in how the black man is being perceived, not just the racist aspects of it, but the somehow subhuman aspects of it. And I now find that there are black people who are also collecting that stuff. I'm certainly not alone. There were new things. I mean, this thing I bought just less than a year ago, but isn't that great? Gnarly Teeth. I mean, that is a wonderful piece of Americana. These section over here are books that I believe have movie potential. So When Day is Done is an idea I have. It's kind of the end of your life sort of a movie. This is Israel, the great Hawaiian singer who did Somewhere Over the Rainbow that's like a classic now, and I'm just fascinated by Israel. He's an incredible performer. If you look over here, by the way, these are, as I find these fire things, which I do every weekend for half a day, when I find something that means something to me personally that was burned in the fire like this was, this is me in New Orleans 6 weeks before the Katrina, making a film, and I just did that. That's my dad, who was an artist in New York City, a very economically unsuccessful artist, but a really good artist. He just didn't make any money. This is, went to Israel, went to the Wailing Wall, one of the world's nuttiest places to be. Up here are the Muslims praying in the mosque. Down here is the Wailing Wall. And the guy says to me, that guy says, "Are you Jewish?" And I said, "I am." And he said, "Well, you got to do this thing." And he wrapped me up in these things. That's my wife, Heidi, and my first son, Henry. And as I find these are my love letters from my wife. And my grandfather's flag from World War I. Look at this. That my father had given me. And it was burned in the fire, but it wasn't totally burned. Now I ask you, I mean, if I had bought that new, perfect, in an antique shop for $300, was it any better than that as a work of my grandfather? So the fire had pretty spectacular results.
Do you think that so this is definitely the favorite? You thank God that these are the ones that survived. If you had to choose, these were the kind of the ones you wanted to survive. You know.
Yeah, no, I know. Well, if I had a choice, every photograph was available, or everything that was available. This was my father hated the dentist, so he made A king teeth are bad tenants. Is that the thing I would have saved from my father? No, I would have saved one of his paintings. But does that give a sense of who my father was? It does. Does that give a sense of me? It does. So, I don't know about best, but I know that sometimes life forces kind of choose for you. Same with the movies. I mean, you got what you got, and you make what you can out of what you got. And sometimes that's the way to go. Well, I'm about a quarter done going through the things that are burned, most of which are in here, but I still have some just boxes of stuff that we dumped. And, you know, I was making this film Sputnik Mania, and it had just finished when the fire occurred. So here's a copy of the New York Times from the day that they launched Sputnik. Soviet fire Earth satellite into space. It is circling the globe at 18,000 miles an hour. Freaked people out. I particularly like these kinds of engravings. These pictures, kind of, to me, they had it all. There's dying soldiers, bare-breasted women, lovers, the Mongols, the Huns. And I collected these. And the fact that it's been burned and has soot, ash, well, it's not worth anything, but does it hurt? I don't think so. I think the thing's still got it. And that's how I see a lot of the things in here that I've kept. Hey, look at this. Now, pull back a second here. Now, this, one of my first film, the old man, the Bascom Lamar Lunsford. I mean, he's showing me pictures in his archive, and he says, "Now, that's when I was something." I was just about to say, "Now, that's when I was something," in terms of a collector. These are, I'm going to make jewelry someday. I don't know why I want to make it, but I'm very interested in images. So I'm collecting objects into which you could put an image. Like here's a belt, a lady's belt. And these things were all not in my house. They were outside. It's my wife and I made that into a tin. But so I have a wonderful collection of objects. I love this Jesus pencil toppers. Don't know why I like it so much. And I like stretch body bits. I'm looking for this stuff all the time. These, everyone has seen these things. These are pencil tops. And I'm headed towards a wall, a huge wall with my objects, hopefully in some, this is a breast cup, which was a thing he drank tequila in, and I like tequila. So I'm looking to make this wall, maybe in a museum, and to put this stuff up in a way that tells my story. So I don't mean my story, ego story. I mean, through all these things, what does this guy see? What is he looking at? Why does he like this so much? And I do. I really do. Hey, here's something really interesting. You stay there. My father was a book jacket designer, and this survived. And this is one of his first book covers. He did the first 250 paperback books for a company called Pocket Books. And that's one of his covers. He came up with these moody things which sold books, and they really did. So that's oil painting. While he wasn't, he never made any money. And this was a prize that survived. Oh man, it got burned on the edges. Look at that. That's my grandfather in the Spanish-American War, Charles Hoffman, a bullet, and the most important thing, his silver star with a gold leaf, given by the president for running nude through enemy lines in Cuba during the Spanish-American War carrying a message. And he made this box, and I said, oh man, I lost that box. These things would come up after the fire, you know, it would be like, oh, I lost that, I really want that. And then there it was in a drawer in this place I'd kept outside. Priceless. Loved it. I'm very interested in little things. I mean, do I sound like a weirdo? Yeah. Would you do this? Probably not too many people watching would do this. My wife thinks it's nuts. Why am I collecting this stuff? Because it's images that have power of history. Everything, the power of history, change. It's the greatness of the past that reflects on the present, like this did get burned, and I loved it. This was what they used to wrap presents in for holidays, and I thought, man, that's done with gold and silk. And I'm hoping sometime I can pull the middle out and it will be okay. My buttons are okay, some of them damaged a little. Make commercials, not war. That was 1968 when everything was either war or not war in the Vietnam era, and I have a lot of those buttons. They're not worth a ton, you know, and you could buy them on eBay. Not all of this stuff, but a lot of it. The point is, though, what matters to you? Well, they say that the average family has 125 objects in their house, things they bought. Well, that's 125 times 115 million American homes. That's a lot of things. And I'm fascinated by those things, not necessarily the valuable ones, but the ones that radiate to me. I mean, if I could show you, by the way, that's my father's first painting when he was a student. It survived damaged. It's 1954. That's Rhode Island, where I come from. And here's one of those images that matters to me. It's damaged heavily by the fire. But man, that's David and Goliath, but that's no joke. In this David and Goliath, he cuts his head off after he knocks him out with a rock. These people, these engravers, they really knew. Look, the guy's face is there. He's huge. David's arm muscles are big like Michelangelo painted. I love that. I love this. World War II. I bought 4 of these. Protect his future. Watch your tongue. And look at that Earl Christie picture. That kid has got everything Northern Europeans cherish. I wanted to show something that kind of says it for me, which is here, the fire did that to the engraving. And this is one of the, look, it says 1800. When they were first exploring, these guys tried to paint what they saw. I do not believe this in any way racist. He's trying to show what he thought these people looked like. The very large breasts on the woman were probably how he perceived it, which was these were great-looking people. And this guy was one of the guys who went on these ships, painted on the ship, then came back and printed the book in England. And I think that's fantastic history. I am, well, this is another one of these photographs, but that is just, to me, an unbelievable Depression photo from Wisconsin. The chickens. He's sitting among the chickens. He's not a happy camper. The building looks old yet again, and the chickens are all in motion, and the guy is, it's a hard time. This other one, though, on the left, is the opposite. I mean, that's also a depression picture. Although the picture is just as you see it, the two have their eyes closed and they're floating. The lady appears to be holding nothing, but I think it could have been a leaf or a glass of wine. I'm not sure. But they are having a very nice time in that pond in the summer. Really relaxed.
Tell us about the burnt up statues, David, if you want to walk.
All right.
Tell us about,
Yep.
Tell us about those.
Over here, I'm keeping things that are more destroyed, pretty bad. I made an album of photographs when I was 10. Only 4 pictures survive. My son Henry. Does that still have mood? I think so. My close friend Mark Peratt dancing with my daughter. This stuff's pretty bad, but would I throw it out? Well, my wife would, but I'm not going to, because someday I'm going to, that's my father, days before he died. What I have here is like this. This is one of my, if it's not an Emmy, it's one of those big awards. There was an award that melted, but the sculpture didn't. That's pretty neat. I made that, a nun in a box. And this, you probably recognize this. This was given to people at the time of the Vietnam Memorial, and I loved the original sculpture, and I don't hate it in its present nearly destroyed form. There's one other thing that's kind of interesting. Some people have probably seen this, but when I was a kid, my father played this for me, and sure enough, I could still play it. Pretty nice. Brings back the same memory to me that a smell would make somebody, or an image or a thing. I mean, that's the point. Not all of these things were in my youth, but they're somebody's youth, and they mean a lot to me. Wait a minute, hold on here. Heidi and David, me, on our first dating experience to Mexico in a place in Cabo where they only serve tequila. And that was a picture that would have been lost, and there it is, man. It survived. And look, it burned around the edges, but all the essential fun we were having at that moment is there. I'm working on a film on what the things that I kept from the fire mean to me, making it for my 2 sons, so that someday they will look at this burned out nothing and say, why did my father keep that? And I want to tell them, what do I see in that? What do I hear in that? Why is that a story that interests me? I haven't made that movie yet, but I'm all set up to. I have my HD little camera and my little mic and all my things around me in this crowded space that every collector will know, though it looks disorganized, is becoming organized. I'm headed towards something. Has it changed my life? Well, it got me into Santa Cruz, one of the greatest towns. I was living outside it. I now work at home, where my boys are right near me. I could have made money out of those things, and this is a good lesson, and I didn't have any insurance on my film. I only had insurance on my personal effects. All those assets just gone. And I think the lesson is that if you think about your own life and the tragedies and turn them into positive things, they're very great moments for creative result. My view is the ordinary citizen, particularly with today's technology, can be highly creative, extremely individualistic, just by following a set of techniques that you don't have to be Shakespeare.